Happy New Year, race fans. I'm John Baldwin, and welcome back to In the Marbles. And what I thought I'd talk about today is me purely speculating about what possible changes could be made to the, NASCAR playoff format. As much as we'd like a return to the old Winston Cup format, the 36 race full points format, I don't think it's going to happen. And the main reason I don't think it's going to happen is a monetary one. It's a business side of one. I think there's a lot of good branding and marketing that the NASCAR teams can do to get more money from sponsors. I think NASCAR can also, by having a playoff championship format, they can also get more money from sponsors for maybe those races, more advertising dollars. Same thing with the media. There's a lot more money in advertising when it's a championship than a regular season. So I think there's a huge monetary incentive to keep some sort of a championship. But I do think that there are changes that need to be made. So I've worked with Grok on X.com about how I would do some things and what changes I would make and how I would make it so the fans are happy with who is crowned champion. Because there have been several years where the dominant driver for the year was basically screwed by the format, and the fans inherently feel that that's kind of unfair. And so if we can have a system that has drama, that has a playoff, that has cutoffs, that has all the bells and whistles that make a championship format, a playoff format interesting like that, but then incorporate a 36 race point season, fix some of the things that older fans look at and go like, why are you doing this? And so let's get into it. So I call my system the 4-3-3 system. Let me see if I can show you. The 4-3-3. And basically the first round would be 4 races, second rounds would be 3 races, and then the championship round would also be 3 races. But you go from 16 drivers to 8 drivers to 4 drivers. So it's a more natural progression in my mind. I always thought that the round of 12 was super weird because when you look at like the NCAA tournament, you go from 64 to 32 to 16 to 8 to 4 to 2. There is no stop at 12 where you only do a partial cut. No, it's always cutting in half. And so I feel doing something more in line with that works better, and you get away from that one race sort of Super Bowl. And unfortunately, I do think that NASCAR was comparing itself with the NFL and the Super Bowl, and they were modeling kind of inappropriately after having a Super Bowl type final race where it's a one race winner take all championship, right? Yes, but NASCAR is closer to baseball or basketball or even hockey in that they're more, a lot more races, just like those other sports have a lot more games than football. And it's a lot more stats oriented because, you can place there, in football, it's A or B, you win or you lose. Baseball, you win or you lose, but you're really playing a series. You're playing multiple games. Even during the regular season, you're doing a homestand. You're doing going to the other team's stadium. There's a lot more back and forth between the individual teams. And so I think you have to look at NASCAR more in lines with stats-oriented sports. Again, I'm pointing to Major League Baseball, the NBA, and the NHL, because they go to best of 7 series. So I think if we go to effectively a best of 3, a 3-round, best points, best victory, whatever wins, and then we make the point system in the postseason a little more aggressive, give out a little more points, allow that kind of Cinderella story to happen, to allow that lower seed to be able to point their way into that final round, or to, you don't want to have it so that the system is so power protect that once you get to the playoffs, okay, the number one drive, the guy who ranked number 1 is guaranteed the victory. You want to avoid that. You still need the upsets, the Cinderella stories, the guy that has an amazing run or the driver that has an amazing run and kind of runs the table for the last 10 races of the season. You want them to be able to point their way into that championship round. So that's kind of my thought, is that you got to think of the best of both worlds. We still want that 36 race point system, but we also need to focus and realize that the 10 race playoff can work inside that system. And that's what I did. I tried to create a hybrid system where you still have the 36 race points, but only certain drivers, if you got to qualify to be in that kind of championship. So you got to be one of the top 16 to get into the finals, into that playoff. So I do think that I'm trying to create a best of both worlds, acknowledging that the sport is a business and they have to make money, and the playoff works for the money side of things. Even though the points, the fans kind of lean toward the more 36 race, that kind of format. But I think if we do a hybrid where we factor in all 36 races, but then go, all right, you guys are eliminated from the championship. These are the 16 drivers. That creates drama. It also allows those non-playoff drivers to be spoilers, to win a race and take a ton of points off the table that one of those playoff drivers could have gotten. So that's my thought, is that the non-playoff drivers can be spoilers. They can screw things up. They can take points off the table and make it so that none of those championship teams can get the points. So that's why I think my kind of hybrid system can work. So let's get into it. Regular season, 26 races, top 16 drivers advance to playoffs based solely on regular season points standing. No wins required for advancement. Basically, we need the points to mean something, and we need it so the regular season means something. So, hey, maybe we make every win more points. Maybe we make the spread bigger between first and second and third, something like that. I just want to kind of goose the points a little bit, but the way I've done it, instead of doing it during the regular season, I only do it during the postseason, the playoff season. So during the regular season, stage points are normal, but what I'm changing here is I think we need to eliminate the stage cautions and the restarts. That, to me, is the part that really messes up the race. It turns what used to be a single long race into 3 mini races. And what I want to do is return it to the full single race instead of 3 mini races. But we can still have those stage points. We just, use a orange and white checkered flag or something like that to denote, okay, you just got the stage win, but nothing stops. We don't have a caution unless there is an accident or debris or normal caution situations. We don't have automatic cautions. I think by not having automatic cautions, by not having those automatic brakes at certain points in the race, you end up having to have the teams plan their strategies better, plan their fuel and tire stops better. Basically, we're adding strategy back in instead of giving them automatic brakes where they know, all right, we're all going to go get fuel, we're all going to go get tires, and it puts everybody on the same cycle. What they did with the stage brakes is they took away a lot of the strategizing, and it was like, all right, we got one guy running long because he thinks his tires will last, or he thinks his fuel will last and he's going to get an advantage by doing this, or this guy's taking tires early. We want to bring those decisions back instead of kind of normalizing things to the point where you have 3 mini races. And I think that's what's a little bit frustrating about the way they're doing stages right now. So yeah. And now let's get into the playoff format. So 10 races are across 3 rounds with eliminations. Round of 16, 4 races, 16 drivers drops to 8. Round of 8, 3 races, 8 drivers drops to 4. The final round, round of 4, the championship round, is 3 races, 4 drivers, and the champion is determined by total points. Full carryover of regular season points. We're not eliminating those. We're not resetting points. We're building on top. And so this makes the regular season count. Before, if you made it to the playoffs, you just erase the regular season and everybody's starting off basically equivalent, and then they had a few playoff points that they built up over the year. I just think that system doesn't really reward the consistency enough that keeping all the points does. So that's my thought there. Um, Playoff bonuses escalate by round. Basically, if you win, you get an extra 10 points. And if you win a stage, you get an extra 2 points. The second round, I go 15 and 3. And then the championship round, I go 20 points and 4. And this is, again, just to make it so you can potentially gain territory, gain ground on that person ahead of you, and potentially be that Cinderella story, be that upset, be that underdog who can win the championship. The way I've set up my system, 89% of the time, the dominant driver for the entire season is going to win. Well, that's because they've been the dominant driver, the dominant team, the dominant car all season. This doesn't eliminate that. This makes it so you don't erase the regular season and have a single race winner take all that frankly makes the regular season meaningless. And that, I think, is one of the frustrations that fans like me have, is that you're basically saying as long as you win a race and then get into the championship round, it doesn't matter if you pointed well all year or finished well all year. You just have to win that final race and you're the champion. That doesn't feel right. That doesn't smell right. That doesn't pass the eyeball test. So let's keep going. I got, again, I call it the points ramp, and I do it throughout. I make the stage points ramp as well. So round of 16, we bump it up 20%. So we start at 12 and then run down from there. And round of 8 and round of 4, we go up to 16, and then we go down from there. So, I want to make these points consistent, but also I want that little ramp at the end to make those final races worth more, to give a little bit more oomph to the end of the season, if you will. So, and then we look at the comparison table. And in certain years, the right driver was crowned. 2017, Martin Truex Jr., dominant all year. He won in the current system, and he would have won in my system by a pretty significant margin. Then you go to 2018, Joey Logano won in the current system. In my system, Kevin Harvick would have won. 2019, Kyle Busch won in the current system. Martin Truex Jr. would have won in mine by only 15 points. That's a tight spread. That's excitement. That's drama. That's everything that the executives at NASCAR and the TV executives all want. They want that drama. They want two fan bases on the edge of their seats watching in earnest, going, oh my God, my guy's right there. He can win. He can upset. He can take the championship. And then we get to 2020 and we see sorry about that, folks. Got a spam call. But 2020 Chase Elliott, he was crowned. But this is a really controversial year. It was a shortened season. Chase Elliott, I believe, had pointed his way into the postseason. I don't think he had won a race. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to remember 5 years ago. But Kevin Harvick had like 9 wins and was dominant. And yet, because the winner-take-all final race, Kevin Harvick lost and Chase Elliott won, and everybody kind of felt dissatisfied with that. 2021, I would have had Denny Hamlin win his first championship in 2021, but that's in the new system, not the old system. And then let's jump a little bit because it keeps going back and forth. Kyle Larson was the champion in 2025. He beat Denny Hamlin, and we all know the William Byron blowout with 3 laps left changed the entire season for everybody. I was fully expecting Denny Hamlin to win that race and win that championship until the blowout happened, and then it was just like, wow. And so you still want some of that potential chaos, but when we look at this, you can see I've got Kyle Larson winning in both systems, and only by 3 points. So he only beat Denny Hamlin by 3 points. So if Denny Hamlin had finished maybe 3 spots ahead, he would have been crowned the champion. But because of where he finished that race, if I remember correctly, I think he finished 6th. So if he finished second or third instead of sixth, then he would have been crowned the champion because he would have pointed his way there over Kyle Larson. So um, this is what, historically, the current system only crowned the champion, the dominant driver, the champion, only 22% of the time. In my system, 89% of the time. 8 out of 9 years, the dominant driver is crowned the champion. It doesn't mean there's not the potential for an upset. It just means that it passes the smell test. It means that there was still potential. I mean, look at the margin of victories I had. The margin of victory was not a lot. 28 points, 15, 52, 18, 35, 22, 41, and 3. The only one that was a blowout was Martin Truex Jr. in 2017, and he dominated that season completely. So him blowing everybody out would not have been unexpected. So this is why I think my system actually would work really well. It would satisfy the drivers, it would satisfy the fans, and it would satisfy NASCAR and the TV execs who like that playoffs and championships because they get to label stuff and market it and get premiums for their sponsorships, advertising, and everything like that. So, hey, look, I'm just a fan like you guys. I just want the best racing, and but how cool would it be if 89% of the time you knew that the best driver for that year was being crowned the champion? I think that would make the fans feel that the format is doing what it's supposed to do. It's basically the same idea as a Stanley Cup championship. It's the same idea as, Major League Baseball, the World Series, where you have a bigger sample size, you get an aggregate, so all right, you won because of, multiple samples instead of just one sample, one, Super Bowl. Because again, everybody feels that there's, how do I put this? Everybody wants the correct champion crowned, and they want that champion not to be just a shoo-in completely. There needs to be that potential for upset and whatever the drama, but you don't want a system that, I'm going to pick on Jesse Love a little bit here, but he's the legit champ for the Xfinity O'Reilly series, but he won the first race of the season last year and the last race of the season. Connor Zilisch won 10 races and finished top 10 in like 18 in a row. The kid was dominant. Yet, because of the format where that final race is the only one that really matters, you get into the playoffs, the rest of the season's deleted. You get into that championship race, the playoffs were deleted, and all that mattered was that single race. And so you only had to be good on that one day in order to be the champion. And that's the issue. Again, Jesse Love, legitimate champion. He played by the rules, won by the rules. But come on, everybody's looking at that going, hey, Connor Zilisch was the dominant driver. Let's go to the Truck Series. If Corey Heim was not crowned the champion, pretty much everybody would have been up in arms because Corey Heim was dominating the Truck Series all year. It was amazing. I think he also had 10 wins. He may have finished with 11 but it would have been a travesty if Corey Heim wasn't crowned champion. Everybody is sort of like, Connor Zilisch probably should have been crowned champion of Xfinity this year at O'Reilly's. But we understand Jesse Love played by the rules, won. He's the legit crowned champion for that series. It just doesn't feel right. And so, again, not trying to take any away from Jesse Love. I actually think he's a really good driver. Tons of top 5 finishes. He's a great driver. I just wish he had maybe a slightly stronger showing during the season so that it wasn't first race, last race, because that's the problem. It just feels like all he had to do was really win one race, take the rest of the season off, and then do well in the playoffs. That's it. And that doesn't pass the smell test. So that's what I'm thinking. Tell me what you think. Comment below, like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. You know what it is. And let me know what you think because, yay, I'm just a fan, you're just a fan, and we just want good racing. So talk to you soon.